All right, friends, we are back. Betting you rolls on. Betting you overtime is upon you, which means we're not talking about Alabama or Georgia or the big time matchups. We're talking about some greasy matchups, some bigger spreads, lopsided games, secondary teams. That's where sometimes the value is. We're going to dig into a handful of those games, talk a little more about the playoff, and have some fun here. So sit back, relax, and welcome to Betting You. If you're new, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. I'm Ben Ressa. That's Matt Kajeski. Sir, we were just talking about, some of these secondary teams. I was complaining about the MAC. I'm interested to see what you have to say on some of these games. We got also some updated playoff information. I don't want to dig into that too much. I don't know if you checked it out. No major surprises. I think most people are talking about Georgia is technically on the outside looking in, but clearly they still control their destiny, in my opinion.
So there's odds out. I just didn't look at them this week.
Nothing. I did look at them. Nothing to me was overly surprising. You've got most of the teams that we've already deciphered that can absorb a loss are like minus 1,000. And then you've got teams like SMU and Miami. Looks like they're headed for potentially just in a straight elimination game in the ACC. And then you have the Big 12, where technically like 6 teams are still alive.
That's interesting. So maybe they would get 4 SEC teams in?
I think that's going to be – I mean, you could have a situation where there's like 6 2-loss teams in the SEC.
There is a situation like that. It'll be hard just with –
It would be hard. Yeah.
They play each other still. Like Georgia, I mean, part of this is going to come down to, like, obviously Georgia plays Tennessee this weekend.
Yep.
And it's a huge spread. Tennessee's quarterback might not play. Yep. I mean, it's a double-digit spread. So if Georgia takes care of that and gives Tennessee 2 losses, I mean, I think the committee's kind of telling us how they view Tennessee versus Georgia just right there. Because right now, if the playoffs started today, Georgia would not be in. It would be from the SEC, Texas A&M, Texas, and Tennessee. Maybe they would put a 4th in, and you could argue Georgia. I don't know. It's pretty tricky, though, right now. Like, most of this is going to play out. Did you see anything you bet?
Not really. I was trying to figure out what exactly some of these teams like Clemson or even West Virginia would be insane, but someone kind of from the outside looking in to weasel in. And then the only other one I'm trying to figure out is BYU. If they get to the Big 12 undefeated and lose, do I think they're out? Because if you think the answer to that is yes, I think it's a very clear spot to bet them to not make the playoff. You can get plus money out there.
I don't think they're leaving a 1-loss team out unless it's a G5 team.
That is my read as well. And that means that BYU would have to lose and then lose, which I still think is entirely possible. But man, if they take 2 from the Big 12, that'll shake things up. That could be bad for a 2 or 3-loss SEC team.
There's definitely some buying opportunity in that conference. I'm seeing right now Colorado, well, at least at this book. This is going to vary book to book. Colorado's plus 100 to make the playoff. Their odds are better than BYU's.
That's what I mean.
Which they would be favored on a neutral field. The biggest thing to decipher, and we've done this calculus many times, I've always thought they're getting 7 SEC Big 10 combined. Maybe it's 8.
I still believe that.
It could be. It's at least 7, I think. Which leaves Notre Dame, the G5 team, and then 3 bids for the Big 12 and ACC. Who gets in as kind of that last team? Because there's the autos. I thought it would be a Miami and SMU, but I don't know. This kind of suggests otherwise. Maybe it is 2 Big 12 teams, but that kind of depends on what BYU does the rest of the way, because you have a great point. If BYU is undefeated heading into the conference championship and takes loss, they cannot leave them out. You can't set a precedent of your team getting punished for playing a conference title game. There's just no way they would let that happen.
And that's, I think, the key thing, because Miami screwed everything up where they could have had the freebie as well. Like, that would have guaranteed 2 ACC teams if Miami went undefeated and lost to SMU.
Well, the other thing is BYU is a head-to-head over SMU.
That's right. Which was my fault because I bet that game. So
it was SMU's fault for kicking 1,000 field goals.
Literally 1,000. And fumbling many a times. Let's get into it. Let's get into the board this week again. If you have questions on the playoff and stuff, we'll talk about, Discord and everything we've got going on. But I want to get to some games here, even if some of them realistically are highly disturbing. And that's where we start. This is going to be a big time spread. I would be stunned, extremely stunned, if anything went haywire here. And I'm referring to Ohio State taking on Northwestern. They have a big matchup with Indiana looming. I don't care about that. I'm not sure they care about that. They'll take care of business. Will they take care of business by 4+ touchdowns, though? That could be a different story.
I think looking at some team total stuff is interesting here.
Okay.
And this is going to be like highly dependent on the number because based on implied team totals, Northwestern's going to come in around 7 points, give or take. I think depending on where these come in, you could look over on Ohio State's or under on Northwestern's. Ohio State's backups are better than what Northwestern is putting on the field right now. And it's not really particularly close. We have seen Ohio State in a lot of blow-up spots this year where we've been in this similar situation. Akron, they won 52-6. Western Michigan, 56-0. I mean, Michigan State, 38-7. A lot of these teams that are just clearly inferior, 3 or 4 scores inferior, still are not meeting their team totals. And Ohio State is very clearly meeting theirs, and it's twofold. The offense, the starters, they're doing their part to put points up when they're in the game, and they've gotten a longer leash than I would expect, certainly longer than teams like Penn State are putting out there. And then when their backups are in, this is still like a very competent, highly talented unit that can just overwhelm some teams. Northwestern's a disaster. They've lost some of their receivers, and last week they benched Jack Lausch for Ryan Helinski, who somehow is still in college football. And I can tell you just from a large sample of seeing Helinski play over the years, he's not the answer. Their O-line has suffered some injuries. Their pressure rate has jumped all the way to 33%. Their defense is hurt. They had multiple starters out there. They've been missing a day for a long time, Xander Mueller for a while. Now that they have 2 starters on the offensive line out, Bryce Kurtz, their best receiver, I just don't know if this team can put up points on even a second team for Ohio State. And I don't think there's going to be any issues with Ohio State scoring on this Northwestern team. And you always have to talk about the motivation, but at some point, just like the team is too talented where, I mean, even when you're not trying, how do you not just absolutely blast a team like Northwestern? Northwestern gave up 40 points to Iowa. Northwestern took Purdue to overtime. This is a disaster of a team.
So you got a couple of different numbers out there. Ohio State is holding everywhere I see at 36.5 for a team total. Northwestern, you can lay juice on under 7.5, or you can lay juice on over 6.5.
I think both are honestly interesting. Like I'm very interested in, and maybe this is just pointing me towards, like Ohio State covering the spread in this game, which I think is certainly live. But once you get to like under 7 points, weird things just happen in games. I think I would rather just go over Ohio State's team total or do like a first half, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Very fair. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned like, I don't view this as a look ahead at all. Not because it's not, just because it doesn't matter talent wise. Ohio State could bench their entire team, and I still think they could probably run it up pretty close if they wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, just like this roster is absolutely insane. Their third stringer is Julian Sayin. I mean, he would start for probably 100 teams in the country right now,
including Northwestern.
I mean, if Northwestern had Julian Sayin, they would be so happy. They have like Aaron Noland as their fourth stringer. He was another 4-star in this class. Like James Peoples, 4-star. Behind Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Smith, and Mecca Ibuka, like Brandon Enos, Bryson Rogers, Jalen Ballard. I mean, this is just ridiculous. The only unit they're kind of banged up is on offensive line, so they're not as deep there. But it doesn't matter against Northwestern. Defense is the same thing. Just in this current recruiting class, they had 7 players that came in of at least 4 or 5-star caliber. That doesn't include last year, the year before. It's just like, this is wild. Northwestern has like 3 or 4 4-stars over the last 5 years. And one of them transferred to Ohio State, and then he actually left again. So I don't know. They haven't been able to keep them all either.
What a world. Let's go to, again, I'm still getting used to these conferences. I guess we stay here. Maryland and Rutgers. More competitive game, clearly. 5.5, 6, 6.5 is out there. Dealer's choice of depending on who you're looking to. Rutgers has been a frustrating team all year. They started out pretty good, definitely hit some turbulence. Monungai's been banged up. What do you make of two teams that obviously don't have everything working?
I think I've come out pretty close to even on Rutgers. Some of it getting lucky, the
Yeah, the
Washington
Washington
game.
game saved me.
Some of it getting unlucky. You take like a Rutgers position on Sunday or Monday, and the Big Ten doesn't release their injury report till an hour and a half before kickoff. And the last couple losses Rutgers has taken, they have been absolutely decimated by injury. They've returned some of those guys here, but I hesitate to even talk about them right now prior to that injury report coming out. They are still missing players. Bryce Felter, one of their guards, has been out. They've been very hurt at running back. Kyle Monungai, he's the one you really have to worry about. Muhammad Torre still not back from his offseason surgery. And then Wesley Bailey exited again at edge. But honestly, they got a lot of guys back, and they had a ton of players on their injury report, like longer beam at corner and stuff that actually played through it. I'm highly interested in Rutgers as long as this team has a competent lineup and is not missing a ton of players. Maryland is a disaster, and I don't think they're being coached well right now. Their offense is atrocious. They have two good players, their quarterback, Billy Edwards, and then Ty Felton at wide receiver. Nothing else is working for this team. They might be the single worst offensive line in the P4, 126th in pass blocking, 134th in run blocking. And Edwards somehow has been competent with the ball. He has 22 big-time throws, 11 turnover-worthy plays. But when you're dealing with a fatal flaw like this, it kind of torpedoes the entire offense. They benched him a couple times this year for MJ Morris, which I can just tell you right now is not the answer. So I don't know what they're doing evaluation-wise. When you're assigning blame, if you have a dumb coach, some of this goes to the quarterback, even when it's not deserved. That appears that's exactly what Loxley is doing with his team. And then their defense isn't anything fantastic either. Rutgers certainly has an edge there. Maryland comes in 94th. Rutgers comes in 57th. And more importantly, Maryland is 77th in run defense. That's exactly what Rutgers wants to do. But the last thing I want to mention with Rutgers is they've gotten some receivers back. Like Demir Miller has played awesome in the last couple of weeks. Dremel returned from injury. Their receivers might be a little sneaky, and I think they could also exploit Maryland's secondary if they want. Watch the injuries for this, but if we get a clean, somewhat clean Big Ten injury report from Rutgers, I'll probably play this on their side.
Yeah, Maryland started the year actually pretty good. They were 3-1, and now they've lost 4 of 5. And there's a chance if they don't win this game, I think it's pretty confident to say they're going to end the year with 4 wins. And I think
I bet they're under win total. Do we bet that?
I can't. It may be in the archive somewhere.
I'd have to go back. I've under 5.5.
I would hope that you could clear that.
Me too.
I think I may have that too, but
we took it and it moved. I remember that.
Yeah.
I think he finished at 4.5.
Well, that could be a problem. But even there, you definitely have some equity. They're not going to beat Iowa or Penn State.
Well, we took it before then, so we're fine.
All right. That's what I like to hear. All right. This is not, I have it on good authority, this is not the Big Ten. Boise State and San Jose State. Boise State, obviously, I think for most people, it's pretty clear that they're the heavy favorite to be in the playoff as the Cinderella or whatever you want to call it. Got to avoid one here, but 2 touchdowns, flirting with 2 touchdowns. Is this the type of team, though? San Jose State, can they cause problems for Boise?
I think they might be able to. There's a couple reasons why. I don't think Boise, we've had certainly, in my opinion, stronger G5 candidates if we would have had this 12-team playoff before this year. They have a lot of injuries, a ton of players on their offensive line. There's 4 main contributors, 2 starters, 2 backups have been out for this team. The big ones are Mason Randolph and Roger Carrion. It's a center and a guard. They've been able to overcome that. They've had a ton of injuries at running back. Fortunately, it just hasn't been Genty, and you can see he's getting like 35 carries a game. Efficiency is dropping sharply in recent games, but it's also you stop Genty, you stop Boise State. The problem is it's really hard to stop Genty, so they might be able to limit his efficiency, but no teams have been able to fully stop him, and Boise's still been able to score. On defense, a couple players in their secondary. Markel Reed's been out for a while. Alexander Tubner got hurt in their last game. He was on crutches. He's their starting slot. So San Jose State comes into town. They've made a QB change. Walker Eget's now starting. 56.5% completion. This is a very limited sample for him. 8.8 yards per attempt. He has 14 big time throws, 5 turnover worthy plays. I think he's run actually a little bad on some of those. He has 6 interceptions on only 5 turnover worthy plays. He can run. The offensive line has not been good for this team, so having someone that can actually move a little bit back there is very important. Their receivers are good. Nick Nash has been awesome. But Boise's defense has also been pretty suspect at times throughout the year. They're 72nd in pass rush. They've allowed situational production, and it's very hard to evaluate the schedule here for these Mountain West teams because you basically have Boise, UNLV. Then I think like San Jose is kind of alone, maybe with Colorado State in this mid-tier, and everyone else is horrendous. So you look at what this defense has allowed. They have decent metrics, but 7.2 yards per attempt to Brendan Lewis, 8.5 to Haj Malik Williams, 7.3 to Braden Shager of Hawaii, 9.1 to Petrus of Utah State, 8.8 to Mateer. There's a lot of blips on the radar where I think this San Jose State should be able to move the ball. Now on the other side, like you could point in some of these very same issues for San Jose State. They definitely have a worse offensive line, even with Boise's injuries. Their defense has been suspect. They're 116th against the run, so that is Boise's primary path to success. And it's even a bigger weakness for San Jose in this game. I don't know. Maybe we could look at like an over or something in this contest. San Jose plays really fast, and Boise's explosive. Just having Genty provides that. This is likely to be in the 60s. I saw 61 earlier this week, but that's something to at least mention, I think. This is a big game in this conference.
Definitely a big game, but that's where you led right where I was going anyway. It's taken some money, but there's 61.5s out there. I'm okay with that number on the over. I think that this game, San Jose State's going to do their part. They're going to have some success. I just think ultimately Boise State will simply outscore them when push comes to shove. But I could see both these teams putting up a healthy amount of points.
That's been most of Boise's games. Their defense has had a lot of issues at times this year. Man, when this team gets to the playoff, I think they get absolutely rolled.
Yeah, it could be bad. I don't know. You know, I think, and I'm hoping this is the case and I could get a good number, not to take anything away from them. I think that Oregon game is misleading in terms of what actually happened.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
People look at the score and they're like, they're like Ohio State. And it's like
Maddox Madison threw for 3.7 yards per attempt in that game. 3.7.
Yeah, that's not it. That's not it.
Oregon did that to themselves, which Oregon did.
The first couple of weeks. Oregon was messing around with, they either played, it was like Idaho State or Idaho, one of these made up teams in the first week, and they were playing around with their food. Just keep that in mind in the back of your mind, I should say. All right, we'll go one more Mountain West. Then I'm going to talk about, by the way, how to get some access to Discord, to Tails, the marketplace, and not just that, for free. So keep that in mind. Don't go anywhere. San Diego State and UNLV. UNLV at one point was a serious threat for this playoff spot. Obviously, they had their showdown with the team we just talked about. Now they're stuck playing teams like this. San Diego State, I don't know. It's just been bad for quite a while. 20.5 point spread, though. It's a lot of potatoes. Can UNLV really run it up that much? That's a lot of points.
That was funny. I love this UNLV team. Man, I was not expecting you to throw that out there.
Potatoes, man, I'm telling you. It's a lot of them. Whew.
But yeah, I think they can score a lot of points on the San Diego State team. I really just kind of expect points across the board. San Diego State is still playing at the absolute speed of light in their new scheme. I'm surprised this came in as low as it did. So I know we're talking a lot of totals right away, and I'll talk about sides in a second, but San Diego State is 17th in pace, and UNLV is 61st. UNLV has a just hyper-explosive rushing attack. They use a three-prong backfield. Haj Malik Williams has been awesome at quarterback. He's averaging over 6 yards per carry. And San Diego State is 122nd in run defense. This defense is an absolute sieve, and their worst unit is against the run. Plus, when UNLV does throw, they have an absolute alpha receiver in Ricky White. I don't know that they can even defend him. So I think this is like points on points for UNLV. Can San Diego State score? There are a decent amount of injuries on UNLV's defense, especially up front. Jalen Dixon on the edge, Cooper Webb at defensive tackle, Malik Chavis, who's one of their rotational safeties. They all missed their last game. And this defense can be beaten at times. it's tough for me with San Diego State more than UNLV because UNLV does have an elite secondary. I think the primary way you want to beat UNLV is on the ground. I don't trust this San Diego State run game quite as much. Their O-line has been surprising. They're actually 62nd in both pass blocking and run blocking. And I don't know if this is a bias or not, but Marquez Cooper is like your lead back from the MAC, handling like 25, 30 carries a game. I just can't see how that is really that productive for this team. But they don't have anyone else. They've had a lot of injuries at running back, so that's what they're doing. When you look at like team totals and stuff for this kind of game, it needs to score something like 35-17, a little bit north of that. And I certainly think that could happen. So I'm very interested in this just towards the over, as long as San Diego State does their part. And they should be healthy enough, I think, to do that.
Let's see. Team total action. We've got UNLV is sitting at 37.5, and San Diego State is at 16.5. Okay. Not bad. I mean, obviously, you can figure these out just by the implied totals based off the total itself. Would you rather go to the game total, or do you think one of the teams is more likely to eclipse the number?
I think the game total overall.
Yeah.
Okay. This is like the fastest team they played in a while. Hawaii is decently fast, UNLV's opponents, that is. But Boise is around average. Oregon State is a little slower. San Diego State needs to do their part. I guess the biggest concern is they only scored 16 points against New Mexico's defense last week.
Well, that's insane. That seems impossible.
They did score 24 on Boise, though. They're just like kind of a roller coaster. They scored 26 on Washington State.
You get some of that, yeah. I mean, you see some weird outliers. New Mexico's defense, though, I've seen that personally. It's horrendous. Well, total action. I can live with that. I've been betting more overs this year than I ever had. It's been very weird. All right. Before we get to the next game, I just teased this. I mentioned this. If you haven't been over to Tails and you haven't seen our marketplace and the app and everything we've got going on, it syncs to Discord. It is a fantastic place to get more content, not just from us two, but from so many different content creators. Obviously, we're both in there. You can come on in here and you check it out. The picks sync right to the app, right to your device. All of that. You get into Discord. It's great stuff. I would encourage everyone to come give it a try. But this is what you actually want. This link right here, it's in the description of the video. It's going to say get Tails for free. And I mean free. What we are doing, we have partnered up with so many different books. So I know if you're watching this, most likely you're probably on one or two of these, but I can guarantee you're not on all of them. From BetMGM to Bet365, Caesars, some of the pick'em sites, Underdog and Sleeper and Rebet. Obviously, you've got DraftKings and FanDuel, Better, Vivid, whatever you want. You go to this page and you claim these offers, or 1, 2, 4, whatever you want. For each one that you claim, you follow these instructions. We give you a month of any Tails package that you want. So if you do 2, you can get 2 months of someone. You could get 1 month of 2 different creators. It is that simple. I know a ton of you watching, or I know what you're saying. I already took advantage of this. There's always opportunities to do more if you're interested. But for people who are just seeing this for the first time, I cannot stress how awesome this is. Not only do you get the bonuses from the books, by the way, so you're getting the 10 into 200 or 5 into 150 or whatever. You're getting a month per claim. You have to do it off this page. You do this and follow these instructions. You're in business. That link is in the description. Pause the video if you have to and go back, but it doesn't get any better than that. Let's get back to some of these absolute creative games. Wake Forest and North Carolina. Probably, I could confidently actually say I would rather see this on the basketball court. I kind of like what Wake Forest is doing. We're going to be stuck with them for a little while on the football field. 10, 11, 11 and a half. It's all over the place. What's going on with North Carolina? I obviously, since they lost their 8th quarterback, I really wasn't paying attention the last month or two. Where are they at now?
They are, I think, getting healthier and sort of peaking at the right time.
Okay.
They obviously need to win 2 games out of 3 to make a bowl game still. So it's kind of working against them. But fortunately, they get Wake Forest here, who's kind of a disaster. They're very hurt on defense. In the defensive backfield, Capone Blue, Jamari Glasker, Sedarius Kelly have all been missing time. Bryce Ganius at defensive tackle also got hurt. And now for UNC, outside of the quarterback situation, it's kind of just Bryson Nesbitt who's hurt. They returned like Rucker on defense. They've got a lot healthier on offense. Their line is intact. So this is kind of, I think, the best version of North Carolina we've really seen all season long. Rucker got hurt immediately, and he's their best defensive player. And since that happened, they've started to win games. They beat Virginia. They beat Florida State, which isn't saying a lot. But even before that, when they had some of these injuries, they were extremely close in a lot of these games, and some of these should have been wins. Like Georgia Tech, single digits. Pitt, 10-point loss. Duke, they lost, but they had a 61 post-game win expectancy. The James Madison game was just wild with turnovers and special teams nonsense. So this team is right there and coin flips away from a lot of actual victories. Their line is decent, 23rd in run blocking, 79th in pass blocking. Criswell's nothing special, but he only has 8 turnover-worthy plays. As long as you keep those down, give the ball to Amarian Hampton, Nate McCollum, and Nesbitt when he's healthy, and you should be just fine. On offense, plus you're facing Wake Forest defense, which isn't anything spectacular. They're worse in coverage. They're 80th there. They're 66th in run defense. I think North Carolina moves the ball on this team. And then again, this North Carolina team is actually, I think, peaking at a time where they've had a lot of injuries. Their pass rush and their run defense should be better with Rucker, which is important against Wake Forest. I'm interested in this team. It has to be a 10, though.
Yeah, you're going to have to search. Again, it's been bouncing around, and North Carolina's taking some money. What do we got for a total? Not that I really have a lean on a total.
64, I think.
Yeah, 64 and a hook. Yeah. I think I'd lean under, but I'm not looking to get involved there.
Yeah, pace is pretty good. Defenses are bad. Wake Forest is decent offensive efficiency. They're very hurt everywhere, though. Their left tackle is also hurt. So, I mean, great job. Good job against Rucker here. Good luck, at least.
Wake Forest pisses me off. I don't like this. Everything they do, I don't like that thing where they just everyone grabs the ball at once. It just that annoys me.
You don't like the mesh?
No, don't like the mesh. Not a fan. Fan of Kenneth Walker, but he's not there. So that's what we got.
They also ran him out of town, those dum-dums.
Yeah. Well, like I said, you know what you do with Wake Forest? Just stash them for March Madness. Wake Forest is going to be a problem. Saw them play South Carolina upstate just the other night. And they actually looked pretty good.
Didn't they just lose somebody?
Their basketball team?
Yeah.
I hope not. Let's see. We're doing a little crossover.
Omaha Billu? Didn't they lose him? If I'm saying his name right, the Iowa State transfer? Yeah, he's out 8 to 10 weeks. They just lost him.
That's great. You're not even paying attention. You're already more informed than me.
I do pay attention. I just haven't been betting it yet. Hopefully this weekend. I've been updating the model and getting myself ready.
Wake Forest has got some things going on. Now, there's been a couple greasy wins, but 4-0, knocking off some creative schools. They play Xavier coming up. I like this team. Anyway, just keep that in back, and apparently they're losing guys all over the place. This was I had a fine Saturday. All in all, it certainly wasn't my best, certainly wasn't my worst. But Arkansas State did not help. They did not understand the assignment at all because they got demolished by Louisiana, absolutely crushed. This is a little more manageable here against Georgia State, who's been a very random team, beat Vanderbilt, has some bad losses. 2.5-point spread. What are we doing with one of our favorite teams here?
Certainly one of our favorite teams. I had some interest in Arkansas State. I've had interest in them most games this year, so I don't know. I don't feel fantastic about this. But I like their quarterback situation. Raynor's been playing better. They just have a bunch of Power 5 transfers. Their offensive line has returned 2 starters now. So I think like their 113th pass blocking unit, the 66th run blocking unit has room for improvement. The real question I have is on defense. This team has lost basically nobody, and they returned a ton of starters from last year, and they've been an absolute disaster on defense with a ton of guys back from last year, which doesn't really compute, and they played a lot of really hard teams to begin the year. So I'm not sure what to make of this. But Georgia State overall, they come in similarly on defense. They're 125th overall. They're bad in every single major metric. Their offense actually has worse grades than Arkansas State. So this is kind of just like 2 potential buy low teams in this conference. The better offensive line is Arkansas State. The better skill position players is Arkansas State. Less quarterback problems with that team. I'm just very interested in buying low here. I think injuries are just fine for both teams. But yeah, this is a really dicey, greasy game.
Oh, it's definitely greasy. The only thing for me, I think Arkansas State's going to get to 3. And
Yeah,
so,
you definitely wait on this.
yeah, like there's 2.5s, minus 2.5s, I should say, at our minus 120. So I think there's an indication that you may be at minus 115 the other way, but give me the 3 that I can find for Arkansas State. Let's see. Last thing, let's do our due diligence. 59. Yeah, it feels about right. 59.5. Okay, that's fine. I won't comment on their basketball teams. Don't know anything about either of them. Haven't seen them yet.
You're not watching the Sun Belt yet?
No. I saw. Hell, did I see? I saw some team the other day. I think it was Louisiana Monroe, and they lost by like 50 to somebody.
There's not a lot of injuries for either team. Just to kind of put a bow on this.
Yeah, it's just a pretty straight games like this. Honestly, I know it's not glamorous. It's like I think this is a complete toss up. If you're going to give me 3 points with a team that I think has some real talent, sign me up. Sign me up for Syracuse and Cal. Not really, but another interesting game. The spread's a little all over the place. I think FanDuel's hanging kind of a stale line right now at 7.5. Other books have moved to 9. Other books are at 8. Someone's at 9.5. I don't really know. Is there different information out there, or are books just straight disagreeing?
I think they're disagreeing. I'm seeing some 8.5s as well.
Okay.
I think Syracuse has been a decent buy low team for most of the year, but injuries are definitely going to play a role here. Basically, as soon as one guy comes back from injury, they lose someone else. It's been very tough with Syracuse just to stay ahead of this. Right now, Deion Wilson at defensive tackle, Kevin Jobody at defensive tackle, Barry Buxton at safety is more of a depth piece, and Dennis Hawkes at edge. They all missed their last game, and that's just on defense alone. They played 8 different offensive linemen in their last game, and I couldn't really figure out if that was mostly performance or if that was an injury thing. They have a couple of depth pieces on that side of the ball out too. But Syracuse still has pretty good numbers. Their offense is solid with McCord. The only thing you really have to worry about is turnover-worthy plays. He has 17 of them this year, but this is one of the pass-heaviest teams in the country, so his turnover-worthy play rate actually isn't that far above average. It is above average in a bad way, but it's not terrible. And then their offensive line has been decent, so LaQuint Allen has had some room. Cal's defense is 34th overall, though this is a very good defense. They're 63rd in run defense, which is their weakness. So that's something to at least mention here. The going should not be tough against Cal's defense. But then on the other side, Cal, their offense has struggled at times. I think Mendoza has kind of turned a corner. 69% completion percentage, 7.8 yards per attempt, only 4 picks, but he does have 11 turnover-worthy plays. You kind of need him to be second half of the year Mendoza, because in the first half he wasn't great. The skill group around him is pretty bad, I think. Their offensive line is bad, 98th in pass blocking, 111th in run blocking. They lost Rush Reimer. I'm not sure when he's going to be back. And then Jaden Ott is still clearly playing through an injury. He had a horrifying game there last time out. I just think this guy probably needs to sit down for the rest of the year. They did get a little bit healthier at receiver, like Tobias Merriweather finally returned, their 4-star transfer from Notre Dame. Gray's returned from Ohio State, their transfer there. Neither of them played full-time roles, and I don't know what they're going to give them anyway. They're both pretty inexperienced. But yeah, they kind of need Mendoza to be a superhero in this spot, overcome this offensive line. They don't have a run game. And with Syracuse, you just have so many moving parts. It's a Syracuse or pass for me right now, but I want to see what these injuries look like come game day, see who's warming up, especially up front. Like if they can't generate a pass rush against Cal and Mendoza has all day, this could be a real disaster for Syracuse, as it has been in certain games this year. Syracuse also has a horrific special teams. This is one of the biggest special teams gaps in the entire week. Syracuse 119th, Cal is 3rd somehow, which is shocking because they had a terrible special teams game against Florida State. But they still come in 3rd. This is a great special teams unit.
Yeah, Florida State's lone win is against Cal.
They should have lost. But that was like a 75% post-game win expectancy.
How crazy would that be?
0 wins.
Florida State had no wins.
Would they fire Norvell?
I was just going to ask you, A, would they fire him? And B, do you think Deion would take that job?
I don't know.
I could
probably. Like, how could he not?
I could see it, honestly.
Do you think that's like the perfect job for? Like, what do you think he's really shooting for?
I mean, it's his place. I could see it.
That's what I'm saying, but
yeah,
I don't know. Colorado's kind of given him the world.
They have. There's no doubt. I just, if obviously once his kid,
I just don't know what he wants. It's not an issue. Clearly, like I don't know what Deion's goal is. He's the hardest guy to figure out in the sport.
It's gonna be fascinating. Yeah, I don't have much to say on these teams. I haven't seen. I saw Cal play basketball. For people wondering, played Vanderbilt. They lost. It was last night. Peja Stojakovic's kid is on the team. Very good player.
Another star like Marbury, isn't he on the team too?
They got we're getting too old. There's all sorts of. But yeah, Peja's kid. I saw him firing off some shots. Shout out to him. All right, one more, then we'll do some best bets. Again, if you have questions, you can find us in Discord. You can find us on Twitter at Matt_Gajewski, at JazzRazBets. We're there available, but I already gave this. If you missed it, go back in the video just a little bit. Tails, get involved. The link is below. You do it for a months on end for free just by following those instructions. We would love to grow that community. We're growing really quickly, so make sure when you get in Discord, you say what's up. We'll introduce you to everybody. Let's talk about Michigan State and Illinois. Another game. That's the theme of this show. I'd rather be talking college basketball. These teams, I don't know. Illinois, I think we both kind of recognized had some fraudulent metrics. They maybe were getting more results than they should have. I don't know what to make of Michigan State. I think they're on the right track, but clearly there you got some ways to go. Competitive game here, 3-2.5. Do you have a lean?
Yeah, I do think they're on the right track. It's just going to take Jonathan Smith a while. I can't believe he's been able to maximize some of the talent on this.
He's a good coach.
He's a great coach. And this goes back to just like what he did with Uiagalelei, turning him into actually an efficient signal caller. I thought Uiagalelei was going to have a good year. And what I maybe underrated was Jonathan Smith's impact and his talent maximization, because Norvell and that staff has not been able to maximize anything. But anyway, Michigan State is playing from kind of just a talent deficit until they get recruiting classes in here. They're really hurt on the offensive line. They lost 2 players earlier this season, both interior guys. And since then, they've kind of been musical chairs, benching guys whimsically. They're just overmatched. Their secondary is very hurt. Dylan Tatum, Chance Rucker, Charles Brantley, Malik Spencer. All those guys are either out or questionable, which is just a disaster. But I'm not sure Illinois can really exploit this. Their team, I guess, is pretty efficient passing the ball. I've actually been surprised with Altmaier this year, but we talk about guys that run hot on turnover-worthy plays. Some of these have finally started to bite him. He has 14 turnover-worthy plays, only 3 interceptions. He had been the most lucky quarterback in the NCAA until recently. And you see the outcome when he actually has some of these turnover-worthy plays that are converted interceptions. The problem is the country's leader in turnover-worthy plays, Aiden Childs, is on the other side. Like, this is wild to say. Aiden Childs actually has better efficiency metrics overall than Luke Altmaier when you remove turnover-worthy plays. However, those count. They're actually extremely important to games, and Aiden Childs has the highest rate in the country. Both these teams have bad offensive lines. Michigan State's is slightly worse, so that doesn't help Childs. I do think the skill position group is a little better for Illinois right now, but I guess defense might be the key in this game. Illinois is 83rd. Michigan State is 116th. The problem is Michigan State's secondary being so hurt. I'm not sure they can really stand up to this Illinois passing attack. So I'm interested in the Illini in this spot, even though I want to back Jonathan Smith. He's covered a lot of games this year, but I just don't think they have the horses. If you want to wait and see if Michigan State returns some of these secondary players, I think you could just take this right up to kickoff. But this is going to be tough, man. Really tough. I guess the only real injury that's new for Illinois is they did lose the starting linebacker, Dylan Roziek, with a broken leg. But I think they'll be okay.
Michigan State is, you mentioned it. They simply don't have the personnel yet. They will. I'm very confident they will. They just don't right now. And it's been like that most of the year. They just don't have the depth or the talent, and injuries kind of got to them pretty early this year.
Yeah, they didn't. They definitely did not have any room for that. No. And I mean, this team was 42nd in recruiting, and they didn't have like a full recruiting class. Obviously, you went through coaching change, but like they had 2 offensive linemen, They haven't really got a chance to play yet. Nick Marsh has been awesome for this team, the 4-star receiver. Hopefully they keep playing him. I mean, Childs, the former 4-star. There is talent here, and Jonathan Smith is going to go out there and maximize that. It's just not this year.
No, it's not. All right. Let's do a quick recap here, and then we'll get out of here. We talked about some totals. We talked about some sides. What ones pique your interest the most?
I'm interested in overs on Ohio State's team total. I'm probably going to bet Rutgers after the injury report. They have a lot of defensive guys to worry about, but if we get a clean bill of health against Maryland, that is a team that I just flat out do not like whatsoever in this spot. Those will be my top two for this week's greasy slate of games.
I'm going to throw Arkansas State in there. There's a 3. I kind of was waiting for that number. They pain me. They obviously pain me, but at the same time, I'm there. And then I'm going to go to the over in the Boise State game. We talked about that one earlier in the show. Chop it, of course, but anything in the 61.5 range. I just think that both these teams are going to have success. I don't think San Jose State is overmatched in this game. I'm not looking to really bet them, though, because I think ultimately Boise will simply outscore them, and it could be for a pretty sizable margin. But honestly, that's a little 4-pack. I'm sure I'll have some ads as we get closer to kickoff. It's just that kind of a day. What do we got going on here? Maybe I'll throw one for the people on the fly, just full on, off the cuff. Honestly, you could lay it with UNLV tonight.
16 You're talking
points against Omaha.
Pull up the hoops.
I'm just saying.
I'm gonna get my hoops act together.
Yeah, you get your hoops game.
I'm like 24 hours away.
24 hours away. You heard the man himself, who's been dropping absolute gold in the prop market in college football. College basketball props, those are extra. Ooh, Mississippi Valley plays tonight. 34-point underdog against Missouri.
You are out of your mind.
They're coming off a win. They're coming off they beat Mississippi. Hold on. Let me get this right, and then I'll leave the people. Mississippi Valley State the other day, they played a college, and I had to do a double take because I was just like, wait, what? Mississippi Valley State, yeah, they just beat Mississippi University for women. Apparently, men go to that college, but I was very confused. That's one thing about college basketball. No matter how bad you are, there's a school that's worse out there. You can always find a creative school or an art school or something like that to get a couple early season wins, and that's why we love the sport. Some big spreads, some great action. Hopefully you guys found this fun. Again, share the show, hit the like button, all that good stuff. And of course, if you have any questions, we are here to help. We are in Discord having some fun and hopefully cashing some tickets. But on that note, friends, we are going to bounce on out of here. Bets are locked and loaded, and many more will be dropping. So on that, for me, for Matt, and for everyone here at Odd Chopper, good luck. Enjoy the games. Talk to you soon.